I'm here with Dr. JJ, doctor and baker extraordinaire, and today we're going to teach you, or JJ is going to teach you,
that's right,
how to make your own starter for a delicious sourdough loaf of bread. Hi guys, I am here at the Boulevard Kitchen in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles. It is the most beautiful facility. I mean, if you could just see this whole thing, it is gorgeous. I actually kind of want to move in here. And I am here with Dr. JJ. Dr. JJ Levenstein is a pediatrician, and she is also a trained chef and a baker extraordinaire who has a touch, the real touch, when it comes to making sourdough bread. So today, JJ, you're going to show us, or show everybody at home, how to make a sourdough starter.
Yes, that's right. That's right, because actually I came from San Francisco, moved to LA about 33 years ago, and I yearned for that great, perfect sourdough that I ate every single day of my life as a child. And I really couldn't find it. And I would buy commercial starters, and they just didn't take off. They had no life of their own. So I did some homework. I became a little obsessed with Thomas Keller and Bouchon Bakery's cookbook.
Yes.
And found a perfect recipe for making a natural starter, which costs about 10 cents perhaps. And so that compared to a $10 horrible commercial starter just seemed to make a lot of sense to me. But keep in mind, when you make a starter, it's kind of like having a boyfriend. You got to take care of them. You got to pay attention to them every single day. And so we're going to start with the very basics of how to acquire that boyfriend.
So first we're going to get the boyfriend.
We're going to get the boyfriend.
Or
we're going to keep him.
Then we're going to get the ring on the finger. And then we're going to just get him to stay for a long time.
That's right.
All right. Now, but I also want to let you guys know where I met JJ, because you might think sort of an unusual pairing, or maybe a very, very usual pairing, but Dr. JJ and I met on the set of the TV show that we're actually both on every week, Home and Family, on the Hallmark Channel. And for those of you who, I mean, JJ, I have subscribers all over the world, so not everybody will be watching, but those of you in America will put the link for the show. And JJ does fascinating segments on everything pediatrician, so a lot of stuff for kids, because she is a pediatrician, but also they got wind of the fact that she's such an amazing cook that now they're like, oh, JJ, could you cook blah, 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 all these different things. So, so that's exciting. So JJ, take it away. This you are going to love. Share it with your friends. Leave us comments. Leave us questions. JJ and I, but particularly JJ, please, will come in and answer any questions that you guys leave in the comments.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So the principle about starter is the following. It's a leavening agent. So rather than using commercial yeast, it creates in its taking down the carbohydrates and breaking them up into pieces, it ferments your flour, and in doing so releases carbon dioxide, and that creates the leavening effect. Second of all, it just makes bread taste amazing. It's not that bland commercial tasting bread that you would buy out in the market. And third, it's very interesting because sourdough starter is really a fermentation product, and fermentation products help us absorb nutrients better from the gut, and they also act as a preservative. So I don't want to hear any argument that this bread doesn't last as long as commercial bread. You don't need a list of chemicals that you can't read when you can put a beautiful sourdough starter to work as a preservative, a flavor adding agent, a leavener, and something that helps you actually absorb your nutrients and vitamins even better. And how can we do that? Well, we take equal parts of flour and water. So right here I have some whole wheat flour, and honestly, it's very easy to find that. Whole wheat flour, of course, has all the parts of the kernel in it, so we've got fiber, we've got flavor, we've got color, but we also have a dense kind of starter that we're making. And so this is not a light, fluffy brioche kind of bread that we're going to be making. This is a hearty, artisan, chewy, crusty, yummy bread, and she's salivating. She needs a bib right now, but anyway, so we're going to take this, and whether you choose organic or not, it doesn't really matter to me. Whatever your preference, just choose a flour that has gluten in it. So you're not going to put gluten-free flour mix here, and quite honestly, I wouldn't even use rye flour as a starter because it has such low gluten, it really can't stand up on its own and contribute to the structural integrity of your bread. So equal parts of flour and water. And here's the deal with water at the beginning of your starter journey. for the first 2 weeks that you are making your starter and feeding it, I want you to leave a big bucket or a pitcher of water out so that the chlorines evaporate from it, or use bottled water because they have antibacterial properties, and what we're trying to do is actually promote the growth of lactobacillus and other airborne yeast and bacteria that are going to be part of this melange that's giving us this magic in our bread.
JJ, quick question.
Yeah.
Can you use pure or distilled water? Is that better or not?
It doesn't matter. I just would make sure that there's no chlorine in it. So you can run it through a pure filter or through one of your other filters, or just buy some still water. Don't use sparkling water.
Okay.
And put equal parts in here, stir it up. And what you want is something that's the consistency of pancake batter. So you can adjust your water and your flour depending on that. And say you have a little dribs and drabs of different kinds of flour, a little all-purpose, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Throw it all in. It doesn't matter. It's going to add flavor. Okay. It all does the same thing. So I'm going to show you the C that looks like pancake batter. And what you're going to do literally is leave it on your kitchen counter in a nice draft-free place.
That's the boyfriend.
That's the boyfriend. Okay. So you just met him. All right. But now we're going to leave him out on the corner for a while.
Just to sort of check him out.
So what you want to do is either cover this with a very light piece of cheesecloth, or just leave it open air. If you don't have bees buzzing or anything really airborne in your kitchen, you can just leave it open air. Because what we're trying to do is encourage anything that is in our atmosphere that is remotely yeast or bacteria. We want it to actually find a feeding ground here. So in 24 hours, you're going to feed your starter, and the way to feed your starter is actually to get rid of half of it. So you're just going to toss it. Do not throw it down your disposal, because it will turn to spackle and glue. Okay, so dump it in your trash, and it shouldn't smell like anything the first day, but each day you're going to throw half of it away, feed it with equal parts of flour and water, and by day 7 or so, you're going to start to see some bubbles come up. And Sophie, I want you to smell this.
Oh, wow.
It smells truly sour. So all of a sudden, you have a chemistry experiment in your kitchen. And this is when your sourdough starter, see how it's all sort of thready and spongy?
Look at that. Sure. Look at that. Look. Oh, wow.
And it is, because it is a living thing, and each day there's a higher and higher bacterial and yeast count in there. The temperature of your kitchen will affect how bubbly and flubbery this is. So if you have a really warm, moist kitchen, your starter will probably actually maybe even boil over. So make sure that when you're transferring it to a bigger bowl, as you're growing your starter every day, that there's at least 3 or 4 inches of headspace, because by the next morning it may be like a beer that's been shaken all the way up to the top.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. And if you're in cold weather, for example, then you want to find a warm place for your starter to live overnight. So you might put it inside your oven if there's just a pilot light in there, keeping the ambient temperature at, you know, in the 80s or so. So I wouldn't expose it to extreme heat, because that actually will kill the starter. So you want it to be either cold or warm, but not hot.
That's so 37 degrees is the...
Right, if you're going to be very European about it.
Sure, I'm going to be very European. Let me ask you a quick question here. Is, you said that, so I'm going to throw away half of it. Right. And then I'm going to add equal parts of flour and water. So when I add them, do I just toss them in and...
Yeah, so I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to put some of the starter in. Okay, so don't lick your fingers, it doesn't
I'm not going to, I was just thinking about that.
Okay, so we'll put it in a bigger bowl. We'll throw in equal parts of water and flour, and then we'll call Sophie and she'll come over and stir it, okay?
Wow.
All right. Now, at the point that your starter is starting to smell really sour and really start to bubble and have a life of its own, instead of tossing half of it each day, which really becomes very wasteful, it's now time to share. So how do you share your starter? Because this is what has happened with starters across the world. They're shared, and some of them in San Francisco
have been going for
over 100 years. Over 100 years. In fact, they named a species of Candida, Candida San Franciscus. I can't really spit that one out, but it's named after my hometown, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
So what you do is put a cup or so of starter in a container like this with the date, and put it in the freezer and keep a bunch of them, and then when your friends come over, you can give them the frozen starter. Then for them to bring it alive, they just leave it on the countertop, let it defrost, put it in a bowl like this, start feeding it once a day for about 3-4 days or so, and when the bubbles start to return, they can use it to bake. Now, if you're baking every day, you may not want to give away your starter because you're using 500 grams of it a day, which is almost a quart for the kind of loaf that we're talking
almost
about.
A quart. That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
okay,
almost a quart.
So finally, I guess my final question in this is that, so when I get a quart of it, basically, I'm ready to bake it. But what I'll probably do is create more than a quart, because then I can siphon some off, keep it in my freezer, or just keep feeding it on my counter.
Or you can keep it in your fridge. So for example, if you're going away with Joe for a week or for a long weekend or whatever, you can put it into your refrigerator for up to a week. You want to cover it.
Yes.
And it can go without feeding as long as it's put into kind of a dormant state.
Right.
And then what you do is open it up, and sometimes what you may find is that there's enough fermentation while you're gone that actually alcohol is produced, and there's this layer of almost vodka on the top. Do not drink it. Right. I know you don't drink anyway, but anyway, there's this kind of funky liquid on the top.
I'll give that to Joe.
You pour it off. You know, it's not kombucha.
Yeah, okay.
Pour it off, and then scrape off anything that looks discolored on the top. You'll think you have killed your starter, but underneath is a seething pool of wonderful goodness. So just transfer that good-looking starter to a clean bowl, refeed it every day for a couple of days until it starts bubbling again, and you're back in business. Now, the interesting thing is I've had this starter for over 5 years, and there's so much bacteria in this starter that sometimes when I feed it, nothing happens because I've got so much bulk of starter that I'd have to put 20 pounds of flour into it to feed every single bacteria. So when I see my starter kind of looking dead, I actually get rid of most of it. I just put a little, and then I give it a lot of flour and a lot of water, and it comes and bounces back. So here at the Boulevard Kitchen, you can email me. I'm kind of like the Butterball Turkey hotline. You can email me, and if you do have problems with your starter, just email me at jj@callingdrjj.com, and I'll answer your questions about the starter and maybe even turkey, because you can't.
Oh my gosh, this woman is amazing, right? So look, we're going to put JJ's email, because she was so kind enough to supply that. JJ, wait, watch your inbox. We're going to put that underneath the video in a link. So all this information and these steps and JJ's email are going to be underneath this video. Please do leave us comments. Please leave us questions right here. JJ and I will come in, and particularly JJ will, and answer your questions. But this was, I have learned so much in the last few minutes. I'm so excited. I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm going to say this out loud. I am never going to buy another loaf of bread again. I'm going to start making my own.
I double dog dare you.
All right, there you go. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.